today to speak about my experience with Lyme and with his procedure. I was bit by a tick about 4.5 years ago, and even though I was pretty aware of Lyme disease because my husband had also had it, I only had the Lyme on me for about an hour, and it did break the skin, but I chose not to take any antibiotics because I came from a background of pretty holistic. Like, I don't even take Tylenol, so I was like, I'm not taking the antibiotics because I felt like it was only on me for an hour, right? It's supposed to be on you for 24 hours. And then I never saw the signs after that, and at the time I was also breastfeeding, so I didn't know how that would affect the baby with antibiotics. So I chose not to take the antibiotics, and about 10 days later I had I was traveling on a plane and I got an infection. I got like the flu, so I didn't take anything out of it. And then a couple weeks later, I also started getting plantar fasciitis, and I thought it was because I was in flip-flops all summer, so I didn't think anything of it. And then September, my shoulder froze, and then my hip started, and that's when I realized, okay, there's something going on. And so for the next 4 years, I did the route of antibiotics. I saw a lot of doctors around the country. I've probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on procedures that were not covered by insurance. I've probably done everything under the sun, from I can't think because I'm a little nervous, but I've done everything from magnetic therapy to, I went to a Chinese doctor that didn't even speak English, who had formula that came out of her hand that I drank tea for a week, to a port, like he said. I had a port a year ago, exactly a year ago, and I got it infected over Thanksgiving weekend, where I almost died in the hospital, Greenwich Hospital, from sepsis. And that's when I kind of just stopped everything and just said, okay, I need to figure this out. And I just kind of reanalyzed everything, and I started going back to acupuncture and kind of just slowed everything down. And that's when my doctor, Dr. Renna, who I just started seeing right after that happened, he kind of at the beginning didn't really, like everybody, kind of handed me a list of psychiatrists to go see at the end of my appointment, and didn't really believe what I was going through and thought I was making it up. I had been to 3 emergency rooms over the course of 4 years in LA, and every single time they handed me a list of psychiatrists to go see, and didn't even look, and said, your results are completely normal and there's nothing wrong with you, and you're just making it up and you need to go talk to somebody. And it was really frustrating. I don't know how many of you have had Lyme in the audience. I know all of you are very familiar with Lyme, but for people who have Lyme, it's really lonely disease because no one believes you. And the last thing you want to do is be lying in bed and not feeling well. So I was willing to do, over the past 4 years, I'm the first person to do anything. You tell me, I will do it. I even do ketamine treatments. I've done it all. Coffee enemas, you name it. And so when Dr. Renna finally called me back in a couple months later, and he said, hey, I actually think I have something for you. And I said, whatever it is, I'll do it. I don't care. I just want my life back. And even though I live in LA, I spend the summers on the East Coast, because that's where I'm from. And so I go back to visit family and friends. And it happened to be not too far from Dr. Abreu. And Dr. Abreu, I met with him and had my consultation, and he gave me, it was like a month-long prep where you have to wear the thing on your head, and he is able to analyze your sleep, which I wasn't sleeping at the time. I had insomnia, so I wasn't sure what he was measuring, except that I was awake all night. And so we did that, and then I had to take, my blood pressure and my sugar levels and all that to prep for the month before. And then it was pretty simple. Like the day I went in, we did a bunch of videos and tests to prove before, and we even did a heat shock protein test before, took my Lyme disease test before, and it was a 2-hour procedure. You lie in this tube. It's kind of like doing a sauna. I have a sauna at home that I lie in every day. Anyway, and so you lie in there, and he puts the thing on your head, which is actually kind of a little bit more uncomfortable than I would have thought it was going to be. That was kind of the thing that was bothering me probably the most during the whole time. It lasted about 2 hours, and it's hot. It's really hot. I would say it's equivalent to, the thing I can think the most similar it was either giving birth, where you're like, it's hard while you're going through it, but then afterwards you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I could do it again, right? You don't think about it. Or it was equivalent to like running a marathon and hitting like that 20th mile, where you're like, I got to get through this to 26, but it was hard. But the last 6 miles, but it wasn't so painful. I mean, you just have to mentally just he allows you to put on whatever music you want. So I had to put on, just keep playing the same music over for 2 hours. It was my Maroon 5. He's like, what is this? I was never used to Maroon 5 song, but it got me through it. And afterwards, that was it. I came out and, you know, I just kind of, he brought my temperature down. So maybe a total of 3 or 4 hours you're lying in the bed. And then it was right after that we took those videos. Like, that's how quick of time it was between the 2 sets of videos and how the difference. And that night I was out. I felt great. Went to dinner. There was no recovery time whatsoever. And I haven't looked back since. Like, it has been, like, I took the red eye here. There was no way I would have been able to take the red eye here before that trip. If I had taken the red eye, I would be in bed for 2 weeks straight. You know, because flying would set me off, going out, like if I went out with my family or friends one night, I'd be in bed for a week. Like, you know, like that's why they call it the invisible illness, right? Because you look fine when you're out, but they don't realize it takes you a week to recover to get to that point. So since then, I haven't really, I'm kind of back to myself, running around doing lots of things. I've been flying back and forth to the East Coast every week. 2 of my kids are now back in school here on the East Coast. I have 5 children, so 2 of them are back. So I've been once a week coming back to the East Coast, and I haven't skipped a beat. So I like to say I'm completely back. You know, there are definitely a couple of things to tweak here and there. I haven't gotten back to exercising like I was before and doing SoulCycle. I'm a little nervous. I was still taking slow steps because I'm afraid that used to set me off. If I would work out, I would be in bed for days on it. I took the last class I ever took was a yoga class. Someone said, come to yoga. It's really just about stretching. I was in bed for 3 weeks after that yoga class. So I haven't started exercising again. I'm a little nervous. I do walk. I walk 10,000 steps every day, but I have not done anything strenuous. That's the only thing. I will do that once everything calms down. But so it was a positive experience, and I definitely highly recommend it. And there didn't seem to be any negatives. I had actually looked into the St. George's Hospital before I knew about Dr. Bruce, so I was very familiar with what hypothermia was. I just did not want to take the risk that was associated with that. I wasn't to that point where I felt like it was like do or die, and so I didn't want to take that risk of, you know, having brain seizures or some kind of long-term effects. So I didn't do that. But once this happened, I knew exactly what it was about. I was like, I'll try it. So it wasn't as bad as you think. It's just a mental game of just writing it out and being strong. Does anybody have any questions I can answer?
How long ago was that?
I did it in like last week of July. 3 months ago.
When I looked up the hypothermia treatment in Germany, it was about $30,000. How much was your treatment?
It was 45, I think. 45,000. And you know, I've had other people call me since then. And when I've talked to people have called about Lyme, they said, hey, what should I do? And I'm like, oh, it's for 45, 50,000. And I think it depends on how many times you have to do it, how long, and what type of illness you have, from what I gathered from Dr. Brew. But as I said to people, you know, I wish I had known about this from the beginning, because I wouldn't have, the amount of money I've spent since that, before then, and the time of my life I'd have back if I had done this originally. You know, just going, I used to do the 10-pass ozone treatments. They're $1,200 a treatment. I was doing that once or twice a week for months. You know, like the amount of money I was spending on just, like even my antibiotic treatments on my port was $1,500 a week, cash. Like, it's not covered by insurance. So everything's expensive in the Lyme world, unfortunately, because it's not covered. I think it's an overriding, like, we have to get things covered by insurance, no matter what we choose to do. If it's antibiotics or any ozone, any of it. It's crazy, that's not covered.
What temperature does it go up to?
I think my brain only went up to 103, but he said 216 or 206 was my body.
Yeah, so the chamber with Mimi, again, based on her, you know, brain response was 215, so 215 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, there's her own brain that controls that. That's why I say once from the start, she really was able to tolerate well. And the temperature of the brain actually varies greatly because we are looking at this high speed, the highest speed possible of change is what we are aiming for. But you can tell your experience about your hands and the feet that, you know.
Oh yeah, I forgot to do that.
paralyzed.
So, Dr. Brew's approach, which I told him that's not my personality, but we really, because he likes to kind of keep things from you, like he doesn't really tell you that you're in there for 2 hours. It's kind of like a little kid, you're like, 5 more minutes, right? And I said to him like, no, I would rather have gone if I'd done it again. I'd rather know everything up front. Like, you're gonna be in there for 2 hours, just stick it out. And he didn't tell me either that you would lose movement and feeling in your feet and your hands. So when that happened to me, I started freaking because I was like, wait, am I dying? Like, what's happening? Like, I would rather have known up front, like, hey, when you reach the point where you can't feel your feet and your hands, like, we got there. Like, just hang out for another 15 minutes and we got it. So that was a little, like, shocking to me when I was like, what is going on? Because at that point, when he told me, oh, that's normal, I was already in a state of kind of like, what's going on? I'm so hot, I just want to get out of here. Whereas if I kind of knew, like, we were reaching that point, stay there, it would have been better. But yes, you get to a point where you don't feel your feet and your hands, which is very strange. But then he said that's what's supposed to happen.